Hello and welcome to Sit Down with the Supt. I'm Craig Birnbach. I work in the communications department here at Evergreen Public Schools, and I'm your host for this special episode of Sit Down with the Supt, where we'll be focusing on a very difficult but important subject, the budget reduction recommendations that Superintendent John Boyd will be presenting to the board on March 14th. In this episode, Superintendent Boyd will be joined by Deputy Superintendent Dr. Charlene Williams and Board President Julia Bocanegra. Now, the goal of the show is to share information about the reduction recommendations, the reason the district has had to make these cuts, and the process that was used to determine those reductions will be recommended to the school board. And now I want to welcome in Superintendent John Boyd, Dr. Williams, and Julia Bocanegra. Thank you for being here. And I know, John, you wanted to start it off just with a general statement from the three of you.
Yeah, on behalf of all of us, I just want to express to everybody how important it is for us to make sure that people are cared for under these very difficult times when we're making reductions of people. These are folks that work in our buildings, they're our family, they're our friends, they're our colleagues, and we know that 90% of all of the money that we spend in the Evergreen Public Schools goes towards staffing. So when we're making a $19 million reduction, it does impact people. Those people are real people, they're our friends and colleagues, and we don't take that lightly.
Thanks, John. And you mentioned it. My first question actually is the amount of the cuts and how that number is decided upon. You said it was $19 million. Can you tell people why it's $19 million and how you arrive at that number?
Yeah, we have to, just like any business, we have to balance our budget. And so in order to balance our budget, we have to make approximately $19 million worth of budget reductions. We don't have a fund balance. We have a 5% fund balance right now. That's the minimum fund balance set by the board, and that allows us to do payroll, pay bills. If we go below that, we'll compromise that. So it's a simple matter of having to balance our budget in order to run our district.
Thanks, John. And this week, you shared a letter to staff that also included a document that gave some specifics on the reductions. Why did you feel it was important to share it now as opposed to after March 14th with the board meeting and give those specifics?
Well, you said it. We're going to publicly put those reductions in front of the board on next Tuesday, on the 14th. And we wanted to make sure that the community had an opportunity to see those reductions, that principals had a chance to talk to staff members before that, so that it wasn't the first time that they were seeing it at that moment. So we thought it was the right thing to do for everybody involved.
That's been consistent with kind of your leadership message, correct?
Yeah, we're trying to be forthright and transparent with everything we do, even when we have to do hard things.
And Julia, I'm going to bring you in here now because also the board obviously speaks to John about these decisions. Why was it important to you and the board to make sure that this information got out before the March 14th board meeting?
Well, we understand that these budget cuts are going to have an impact on our staff, our community, our students. And it's important that we get the information out. We know as a board that we want to make sure that the community hears the message, even when we have to deliver the not so good news.
Thanks, Julian. The next question I'm going to direct both to Superintendent Boyd and Dr. Williams because there's multiple parts to this, and it's not simple. But people want to know, why do you have to cut $19 million for next year? And I'll start with you, John, because you are the one that will make the recommendation.
Yeah, and I'll make the main point and let Dr. Williams take the rest. But the main point is we've had an enrollment decline of almost 13.8% in the last 5 years. So enrollment decline equals dollars because the state funds us per pupil. And so that precipitous enrollment decline has really impacted our bottom line.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, there are at least 3 other factors that have impacted our declining budget. One being we are entering the end of the support from the federal government through ESSER funding. So schools around the country throughout the pandemic have been supported by additional federal and state dollars. Ours will expire fall of 2023, and that's going to have a significant impact, especially when you consider, some of the challenges we continue to face with some of the ways our students were impacted by their learning was impacted over the pandemic. Additionally, we are going to lose levy equalization funding. We are on target to lose about $5 to $6 million. That was one of the tools the state was using to try to level the playing field amongst school districts, but now that is being reduced. And there's something I think we all can relate to that requires little explanation, and that word is inflation. I think we see it at the pump, we see it at the grocery store, we see it all over the place. And of course, as a system, as large as we are, having to provide food, benefits, and all contract services, each of those things are impacted by inflation. That, among other unfunded mandates, we're still challenged by some of the outcome of the McCleary decision and ways we're going to have to uphold things that we're required to do as a district.
And Julia, the things that Dr. Williams and Superintendent Boyd are talking about here, things like the Esser Funds, the federal money that is expiring, it's not just an Evergreen Public Schools issue, right? It goes beyond us. We're not the only ones dealing with this.
Yeah, correct. I recently had a chance to visit with school directors across the state, and they're all experiencing those same factors that Dr. Williams was just mentioning: inflation, the loss of Esser funds, and all of those other factors that go into school funding is really hitting districts in our community and across the entire state and even in the country.
Yeah, the Esser Funds, they were there to keep, to help schools get through the pandemic situation, so decisions didn't necessarily have to be made like this while the Esser funds were coming in, correct?
Correct. Even with the loss of enrollment, we were still able to maintain our levels because of the Esser fund dollars that we had.
Okay, and of course, back to you, Superintendent Boyd, and this is a multifaceted question as well. People want to know, okay, you had to make $19 million in cuts. They see the list of things. They want to know, what was the process? How did you and the district decide on what reductions had to be made?
Yeah, and I accept the responsibility for being the arbiter of what's best for the district, and that's what I've tried to do. We held stakeholder feedback sessions. We created some guiding principles for our inner team to work to be able to get feedback and then try to translate that feedback into action, and which resulted in the budget that I'm presenting.
And those guiding principles, they are available on our website for people to see. And can you share a little bit about what those consisted of? You don't have to tell all of them.
Yeah.
People can see them, but
yeah. And by the way, all of the information is on our district website. We have a web page specifically devoted to the budget, so that folks can go to that and be informed. A lot of people really want that additional detail, so we encourage people to do that. But yeah, our guiding principles, we used our equity lens, and we then translated that, worked with our district leadership to translate that into things like, we want to keep cuts furthest from the classroom. We want to keep cuts furthest from those students furthest from opportunity and justice. And so every time we sat down with our core group of decision makers, we put that up, we reviewed feedback, we tried to, we have to look at contracts and funding streams. It's a very, very complex process that we went through to get it to the point where we can recommend to the board these reductions. And there are no good decisions, there are only hard decisions. And we've tried to do what we think is best for the entire system, and really for our students most of all. We've really worked hard also to preserve our athletics and activities and the programs that students count on and are especially needed in this time after the difficulty of the years of the pandemic.
And you talked about stakeholder feedback and engaging with people. And Dr. Williams, one of those things was an interactive survey that went out to everyone. Can you share a little bit about
Absolutely.
About that?
In our efforts to get feedback from our community and to lead with transparency, one of the tools that we've used is the ThoughtExchange, and it allows participants to engage with each other's thoughts and rank thoughts and add thoughts to the conversation. And one of the things that became really transparent, and we anticipated this because we all care about our students and want what's best for them, but it became very clear and really affirmed some of our guiding principles that we really do need to do what we can to stay away from the classroom. So whatever we could do to stay away from the classroom in terms of those cuts, that's exactly what we tried to do.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And Julia, I want to get to a very board-specific question because we keep mentioning that March 14th board meeting. Can you tell people exactly what will occur at the March 14th board meeting?
Yeah, sure. On Tuesday, March 14th, we'll have our regular scheduled board meeting where Superintendent Boyd and Chief Financial Officer Jennifer Jacobson will give us a budget report. Then John will present the recommendations for the budget for this coming year, and then the board will have a chance to ask questions. There'll be an opportunity for the public to give input. And then just a reminder, though, that at this meeting, we're not taking a final vote.
That'll come later on. I'm going to go back to you, Superintendent Boyd. You've shared these reductions, information publicly, of course. A lot of families are going to right away say, okay, well, we see the cuts, but how are you going to make sure that my student is still getting the education that they deserve?
Yeah, and I don't want to minimize the impact on people. We're looking at 140 positions across the district, and so I don't want to minimize the impact of the individuals that are giving the hard news that their position's not there. And we're a big system. We've got about 4,000 employees. It represents a 5% cut. So as hard as this is right now, we're going to be able to manage it and move forward. We're going to have to combine resources. We're going to have to look for efficiencies. We're engaging in a new strategic plan that I think will help bring us together and allow for some of those efficiencies to occur. And of course, everything's about students. All that we do has to be centered on what's best for our kids. And so we'll make sure that things happen in that way.
All right, and you mentioned the strategic plan. I know, Dr. Williams, you've been kind of leading that process. Can you update people on the strategic plan and kind of let them know how that plan will help with the combining resources and efficiency and alignment that Superintendent Boyd was talking about?
You know, it's one of the things that gives me hope in this tough season that we're in. We've been able to engage students, staff, and we have a plan to go out to families to engage them in the strategic planning process. We've been working with a phenomenal consultant, Dr. Tammy Campbell, who's had success as a district superintendent in helping turn things around. And so the process really includes us getting really precise around what do we expect to see in the classroom, what do we expect leadership, what do we expect basically from the classroom to the boardroom. How are we going to align our support services to make sure students have what they need? We have gathered together in various teams across the system and looked at the latest research. We've looked at best practices. We've looked at practices in Evergreen that we know are working, that are promising practices, and how do we shore them up and give our staff members what they need in order to be successful. Nothing will replace people, but we're going to do the best we can with the resources we have to do right by our children through this planning process.
And there's so many people involved in the strategic plan, and hearing a lot of voices coming together. I'm excited.
Well,
about
we'll
that.
be coming out to the community. I'll use every opportunity that I can. If you can engage with the strategic planning process, do so. We're going to push out some taglines for people to weigh in that really will help capture the vision of what we want to see for our students. And so there'll be opportunity at every level for every community member, stakeholder to give input into that plan.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And we use this show to get information out, and of course, budget is primary right now. But I do want to move off budget for a second here because last week the district did announce changes to schedules for schools starting next school year, and I wanted to give you, Superintendent Boyd, a chance to kind of elaborate. We sent a letter out to people, but elaborate on why those changes in school times and schedules, elementary to high school, had to change.
Yeah, and the biggest impact, and the people we're hearing from, are middle school students and our middle school parents. And in order to provide transportation and get students to school on time, and in order to have the requisite amount of instructional hours that the state requires us to, we had to make a decision to change the tiers of our transportation. So we put together a group of people. We worked with our transportation. We worked with our teaching and learning team to decide on what we thought was the best configuration. Then we had to make the difficult decision of which group or which schools had to go later. And we made the decision to have our middle school students go later. The research is clear that older learners it's better for them educationally than it is for younger learners. So it's not ideal, I know, for families, and we wanted to get that information out early, though, this year so that families could make decisions about how they manage that later start time next year.
All right, thank you, John. And now,
Yes.
I do want to bring us back to the budget as we wrap this up. I want to give both Superintendent Boyd and Board President Julia Bocanegra a chance for some final thoughts. And I'll start with you, Julie. Is there something you want to make sure that people hear and understand with the situation?
Yeah, it's tough as is because it's never, great news when you have to come out with budget cuts that impact so many people in our community. But I do want to continue to thank our community for supporting us in our levies. So important because we would be facing so much further cuts if we didn't have that support of our community, and it really helps us continue to keep things for our students, to engage them, athletics, music, drama, extracurricular activities that they can continue to thrive in.
And if that levy, of course, last year we went through that process. This year we didn't have to because it's a multi-year levy. And John, I'll kind of give you the final word.
Yeah, and again, as tough as this is, and we're going to support the heck out of the folks that are that have lost their positions and find as many people positions within our organization. Can't promise everybody that that'll be the case, but we're going to be okay. We're going to move forward. We've got good plans in place. We've got a district that's moving forward productively and positively. And I'm really optimistic about the future and what we're going to be able to do to continue to move our system forward to support students in ways that are going to be powerful. So I'm excited about the future. We're going to go through a tough stretch here, and we're going to really try to support the people who are on the end of having their positions lost.
And you talk about the future with the budget. People want to know, what does this mean going forward and next year? I know you can't predict the future, but
yeah.
But what do you think next year and maybe beyond will look like budget-wise for us?
Yeah, well, we're making the tough decisions now so that they won't be so tough in the future. So if our enrollment comes in the way that we anticipate, we're going to be a lot better shape next year. We're on the leading edge of this, what's called the ESSER cliffs, the federal COVID dollar money cliffs, because we had to backfill because of our enormous enrollment losses. But being ahead of the curve is tough in that we've got to kind of blaze a trail with some of these cuts in the region, but it'll be much better next year, and I think we'll be in a situation where we'll not be reducing like we are now.
Right. And we still have a lot to look forward to this year. I know that graduations and celebrations,
Yeah.
so we'll be back here and talking about other things and really celebrating our students. So
Yeah, and that's a good
Absolutely.
point. We really need to celebrate the heck out of our students. We've got so many positive programs, so many amazing people doing phenomenal things in this district. I've had the privilege of going out and doing empathy interviews with staff members and students, and I can tell you there are just so many amazing kids, so many amazing people. It's tough when you have a hard budget circumstance right now. It deflates people, but there's really a lot of things to look forward that give me hope.
Yeah.
all right, thank you, John, and thank you to all three of you for coming and doing this show with me. And we, of course, will continue to update people on information they need to know through multiple communications, including future Sit Down with the Supes. But for now, for Evergreen Public Schools, I'm Craig Birnbach.
On Facebook, you'll find us at facebook.com/evergreenps. On Instagram, it's evergreen_public_schools. On Twitter, follow us at twitter.com/evergreenps. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/evergreen school district. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And on LinkedIn, you'll find us at linkedin.com/school/evergreenps.